El Mencho attacks the Harfuch with 150 helicopters. He's done it again. El Mencho attacks the Harf base on Gavilan Island again. However, this time the Harf didn't have the same luck. How did El Mencho get so many helicopters? Now, what would be the fate of Harfuch? The offensive began at 3:42 a.m. Thursday morning, when the base's radar systems detected unidentified aerial activity 80 kilometers northeast of the island. Minutes later, 5 helicopters modified with heavy artillery, including 2 cloned Black Hawk models allegedly stolen from private security companies in Central America, crossed coastal airspace at high speed. Highly trained CJNG crews began the systematic bombardment of the defensive turrets, satellite dishes, and armored modules recently installed by the federal government. According to internal Navy sources, the first hits destroyed the main communication station in seconds and severely damaged the satellite surveillance center. Unlike the previous attack, this time the cartel didn't come to test the waters, they came to destroy them. Each attack was surgical, each burst aimed at critical installations. The island's air defense systems, although activated immediately, failed to neutralize the advance. The CJNG's tactical superiority at that moment was overwhelming. From the ground, Harfuch's men responded as best they could. Mobile artillery units fired at the aircraft, while drone teams tried to locate the aerial gunners' positions. But the fire didn't stop. The sky was filled with black smoke and deafening booms. In less than an hour, 4 of the 7 armored modules were reduced to rubble. The helicopter hangar was hit by a fragmentation missile, and the main power generator was disabled by a homemade explosive device. The base was blind, deaf, and surrounded. At 4:50 a.m., one of the CJNG helicopters landed on the northern beach, protected by cover fire. A heavily armed commando descended from it, wearing tactical uniforms without insignia, carrying long-range rifles and grenade launchers. They advanced quickly, clearing structures and securing areas. The resistance was fierce. In the underground corridors of the command center, Harf and his men retreated and tried to sustain the defense with the few functional weapons they had left, but the cartel's numerical and weapon superiority ultimately tipped the balance. A second wave of helicopters dropped thermobaric bombs on the dormitory area, triggering chain explosions that knocked out nearly 20 agents. The defense line was broken. Harfuch, wounded in the left arm by shrapnel, was assisted by 2 officers who were still escorting him. They tried to move him to the underground medical module, but the path was blocked by enemy fire. The situation was unsustainable. At 5:30 a.m., when the secondary communications system had already collapsed and the entire base was burning under the impact, the most difficult decision was made: surrender. For the first time since he began his frontal fight against the CJNG, Harf gave the order to cease fire, raise white flags made from thermal shirts, and emerge from the perimeter with their hands raised. The scene was brutal. More than 30 soldiers, many of them wounded, others stunned by the explosions, emerged one by one amidst the ashes, dust, and mud, surrendering to an enemy that until that moment had never managed to take a federal position of this magnitude. The Delcho men did not fire, secured the perimeter, and ordered the survivors to lie face down. Harf, helmetless, his uniform covered in blood and dirt, was separated from the rest. A CJNG commander, whose identity has not been confirmed, approached, examined him, and whispered something in his ear before making him kneel. Images captured by drones that still managed to transmit intermittent signals to the mainland showed Harf staring motionless at the horizon while more than 20 heavily armed gunmen surrounded him. The federal government, upon losing complete contact with the island at 5:35 a.m., activated the Pacific Shield counterintelligence protocol, which required the immediate launch of reconnaissance aircraft and patrol vessels, and the closure of airspace within a 100-kilometer radius. But it was too late. The CJNG had taken Gavilan Island, not as a symbol, but as a trophy. The news spread across the country like lightning. At 6:15 a.m., the presidency issued a brief statement confirming the loss of contact with the base and declaring a state of operational emergency in the region. At 7 a.m., the Secretary of the Navy called a press conference in Mexico City, where Admiral Luis Sandoval, visibly shaken, acknowledged, "We were overwhelmed." For an unconventional offensive in a scenario for which, frankly, we were not yet prepared. So far, there is no official information on the whereabouts of Harf or the rest of the captured members. Unofficial versions indicate that they may have been transferred to a coastal point under the control of the CJNG, possibly on the southern coast of Michoacán or on a hidden vessel bound for Central America. Naval intelligence is already working on satellite tracking protocols, but as of press time, their location has not been confirmed. How far is the Mexican government willing to go? What began as a strategic offensive by the Mexican state to block the CJNG's maritime routes has ended in an unprecedented criminal counterintelligence operation. The kidnapping and subjugation of the highest-ranking official in the war on drug trafficking represents the biggest blow to the federal security structure since the days of the cartel. Beyond symbolism, the capture of Harfuch has technical and operational implications of incalculable proportions. Gavilan Island was not only a military base. It was a real-time node for the interception of communications, the geolocation of vessels, the mapping of financial routes, and the monitoring of organized crime cells at the national and international levels. Sources from the Special Operations Command confirmed that, after completely securing the island, El Mencho ordered Harfuch's immediate transfer to a mountainous area in the state of Nayarit, apparently to a bunker hidden among crop fields, reinforced with homemade armor and guarded by around 100 armed men. There, without the presence of other hostages or CJ cameras, what analysts are already calling strategic interrogation would take place, designed not for revenge, but to break the official and extract secrets of high tactical value. According to testimonies leaked by cartel defectors and internal intelligence documents intercepted by foreign agencies, the cartel leader did not delegate this phase to his operatives. He wanted to be present. He wanted to do it himself. According to unconfirmed reports, the first physical contact between the two occurred in a windowless room, surrounded by screens showing images of the assault on the base. Harf, handcuffed with open wounds on his torso, could barely keep his gaze up. The cartel leader approached him silently, placed a small USB drive on the table, and said, "Here's your base, but I need the key." It was just the beginning. The sessions continued brutally. During the first 24 hours, Harfuch was deprived of water and food. Then came the electric shocks, suffocation drills with wet bags, and blows in non-lethal areas. The goal wasn't to kill him, but to subdue him. Harfuch knew that Harfs had decryption keys, secret communication routes, covert identities, and weapons depot locations that, if compromised, would put the entire country in a position of operational vulnerability. "Tell me, where are the satellites? Tell me, where is it on the master console?" These were some of the phrases captured in an audio leaked and authenticated by an allied Colombian intelligence cell. In the same file, Harf's labored breathing can be heard, followed by a long silence, then a scream. Analysts point out that the CJNG is not only seeking control of the Gavilan Island arsenal, the extent of which has not yet been fully revealed, but also access to the system for intercepting calls and encrypted communications between federal forces. According to classified reports, Gavilan Island operated as an intelligence gathering point to coordinate searches in key cities, deactivate drug-related bank accounts, and monitor cross-border movements in real time. Having access to this network would mean the CJNG could anticipate operations, manipulate data, and even infiltrate fake agents within security institutions. The information Harfuch possesses is not only valuable, it is critical. If they give in, we are facing a scenario of intelligence system collapse, said a former CNI agent who requested anonymity. The man knows this, which is why he hasn't killed him. He wants him as a master key. At the same time, suspicious movements have been reported on the northern coast of Nayarit and in some isolated regions of Jalisco. Small civilian drones, improvised transmission towers, and nocturnal activity in rural areas indicate that the CJNG could be setting up a kind of replication center with technology extracted from the island. If they manage to reactivate even a fraction of the system that operated there, they could use it to intercept other cartels' routes, blackmail local authorities, or even manipulate public information in real time. Meanwhile, in Mexico City, the institutional silence is deafening. The president has not made any official statements about the situation. The kidnapping of Harfuch. The Navy has toughened its language, but has avoided confirming whether the officer is still alive. The Attorney General's office has issued a brief statement regarding the opening of an investigation into aggravated and forced disappearance, but without offering details. Sources close to Harfuch's circle say that before being captured, the former security chief activated a security protocol known as Operation Eclipse, which contains a logical self-destruct sequence for the decryption system if it detects intrusions or unauthorized decryption attempts. However, if Harfuch is forced to cooperate under extreme pressure, that system could be deactivated manually. The CJNG seems to know this, and that is why time is now its most lethal weapon. Experts in torture and information extraction agree that the next 72 hours will be critical. If Harf gives in, even partially, the CJNG could rebuild everything from its own communications networks to international trafficking routes, all masked by the technological cover of the Mexican state. We are on the verge of a third-generation cyber attack, orchestrated from within by criminals using government software, warned an advisor to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. The Pentagon has already activated urgent cooperation channels with Mexico, while Israel has offered underground heat-tracking technology to try to locate the location where Harf may be being held. And now, what would the Mexican government do? What would its next move be? Less than 24 hours after the Jalisco Nueva Generación Cartel, CJNG, confirmed its capture of Omar García Harfuch, the leader of the criminal organization, Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, alias El Mencho, released a direct, threatening, and unprecedented message addressed to the President of Mexico. The message's content is as chilling as it is revealing. The state must comply with all its demands within the next 72 hours, or it will proceed with the immediate execution of all those captured on Gavilan Island, including Harfuch. The message, transmitted via a high-definition recording and simultaneously broadcast via encrypted organized crime networks, clandestine websites, and channels leaked to national media, was described by intelligence agencies as the first act of public extortion at the highest level of government by a sitting criminal leader. The recording, barely 6 minutes long, shows the former president in an enclosed space dressed in tactical gear, flanked by 2 hooded men armed with automatic rifles. In the background, 5 kneeling, blindfolded, and possibly beaten men, among whom Harf himself was clearly identified. In the video, the latter speaks in a slow but sharp voice. This message is for you, President. We have already shown that we can enter, that we can take, and that we can break what you call untouchable. I have your most loyal soldier here, the one you sent to dismantle us. And I also have his men. If you want to see them breathe another day, listen carefully to what I'm going to say. The CJNG leader then lists 3 specific demands. 1. The immediate abolition of any criminal proceedings against him, as well as those against his sons, his main operators, and strategic allies. I want you to erase every arrest warrant. I want you to release us from the entire case file. I don't want us to be persecuted by land, air, or sea. 2. The complete lifting of blockades and military operations in at least 8 states, including key maritime and land routes: Colima, Jalisco, Michoacán, Guanajuato, Veracruz, Zacatecas, Nayarit, and Chiapas. El Mencho demands the withdrawal of all military or naval presence in corridors where the cartel currently transports drug shipments, weapons, and cash. I want my roads clear. I want my ships intact. I want them to let us work. 3. Diplomatic guarantees of no extradition to the United States or bilateral cooperation in their pursuit. If I cross the border, it's of my own free will, not because they're taking me. I don't want any gringo poking their nose into my business. The message ends with an explicit countdown. El Mencho shows a digital countdown clock projected on a screen behind him. 72 hours. If I don't get a response, one by one they'll leave, starting with the general. And if they want to take them back in pieces, I also have cameras, so you can see how immediate the reaction of the National Palace was. The president, accompanied by members of the security cabinet, held an emergency meeting behind closed doors at the C5I. Although there was no official statement in the early hours, it was revealed that the government activated the Red Protocol, an extraordinary measure designed to respond to maximum-level threats that directly involve and high-ranking officials in the hands of hostile forces. The Federal Intelligence Agency, AFI, confirmed that the video is authentic. The audio and video coordinates match a remote area in Nayarit, although the area is completely closed with no visible geographic references. Har's images show clear signs of torture, a swollen face, open wounds on his arms and neck, and reduced mobility. The message leaves no room for interpretation. The CJNG has captured not only a group of federal agents, but also one of the strategic pillars of the national security apparatus, which is now using him as a pawn for direct pressure against the presidential government. National and international analysts agreed that this is an unprecedented crisis. Never before has a criminal group taken the confrontation to this level, openly challenging the executive branch with a challenge of this magnitude as a bargaining chip. We are witnessing the symbolic collapse of the state's monopoly on force, declared a Columbia University researcher and expert on political violence in Latin America. Organizations such as the UN, Amnesty International, and the OAS issued urgent statements calling for respect for the lives of the hostages and urging the Mexican state not to give in to threats that could normalize impunity. However, on social media, the climate is one of fear, outrage, and hopelessness. Images of Harfuch kneeling, with his head bowed and his face covered in blood, went viral with the hashtag #RescueHarf and Mencho is not in charge. Other sectors demanded an immediate offensive to rescue him. In the halls of the Navy and National Defense, at least 3 possible courses of action are being considered: an extraction and precision operation based on satellite intelligence, covert negotiations to buy time, or a full-blown military response with the risk of violent escalation in at least 6 states. But everything depends on timing, and El Mencho knows it. During the afternoon, several governors received orders to close strategic corridors and redouble patrols in sensitive urban areas. The alert was also extended to PEMET facilities, secondary airports, and fishing ports due to the possibility that the CGNG may use parallel retaliation, and their demands are not being met. A source close to the presidency who requested anonymity revealed that private meetings are already being held with senior U.S. officials, and they have offered assistance in locating Harf using thermal tracking technology. The problem is that we cannot respond publicly without showing weakness or provoking a massacre. Meanwhile, somewhere in the mountains, Harf and his men remain captive. The clock continues to count down, and the entire country holds its breath, its eyes fixed on a criminal leader who now not only defies the state but also intends to negotiate his pardon with blood. And so, we come to the end of this video. If you liked it, I invite you to give us a like so we can continue making more videos like this one. Also, don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any of our new videos. I wish you a great day. See you next time.